to Real Estate War Stories. I'm your host, Felicia, aka your favorite home agent. Please do not forget to like and subscribe. Today I have with me my guest, Nick. Nick, thank you so much for coming on. If you can, go ahead and introduce yourself. What do you do? How long have you been in the business?
Felicia, thanks for having me. First off, I just want to say that I'm grateful to be here. Seen him a few times, so I definitely am happy to be on here. My name is Nick Carrino. I'm an LOA with Team DiBiase of Nationwide Mortgage Bankers. I'm in the industry just a little over 2 years, and we're in primary lending.
Awesome. So I'm sure you have some real estate war stories that you would like to share today. So what is your real estate war story?
There's definitely a few to pick from, I won't lie. It really just depends. Do you want like the really bad ones, or you want like the not so great ones?
Whichever one that you want to share today. What is the one that really stuck out that's probably followed you throughout all these years in the business?
I think the best one that comes to mind is we actually had an agent tell the buyer that closing costs were only about $10,000 on a $600,000 purchase. So that was definitely a hard one to really reel back in with the client not being prepared for the range of 3 to 6% of what the purchase price is. So we had to call the client. We actually had to explain to them and do a full breakdown of what actually goes into the closing costs. Whether it's the prepaids, it's the title insurance fees, the attorney fees, everything else like that. So it was definitely an interesting conversation to have. We had to call the agent as well and let them know, hey, let us handle that side of things. It's not something we hope you wouldn't speak on just for the client's sake. Going from $12,000 upwards of $30,000 is not exactly easy for some people. So to set the expectations ahead of time definitely matters. Mm-hmm. Definitely a big nut to come up with an extra 3% that you weren't expecting closer to the closing table. So
this was after the fact that a deal already had been accepted. Like, how far in the process was this?
This was right before we got the commitment. So we were, getting closer to the conditions for clearing the file to close. There weren't that many conditions. They had great credit. Everything else was, lined up pretty perfectly. We were just trying to figure out the CD amounts and find out what we needed for closing. But when the agent told them that small amount compared to what the numbers actually were before the CD came out, it definitely throws a little wrench in there for the buyer. And like I said earlier, just setting the expectation from the beginning and keeping them in the right frame of mind for the purchase. It's a big decision for people to do.
So for our listeners, it's important then to get that information once you're discussing down payment with the client, once you're discussing the mortgage, how much that's going to be. At that point, isn't that when the closing cost gets discussed?
Yeah, so with any buyer, it's not just case by case, but with any buyer, we do like to set the standard. If you're doing anywhere from 3 to 5% down, we do like to tell you that have the extra cushion of 3 to 5% down, just to be safe. We'd rather have you over-prepared than under-prepared. We'd rather overestimate a little bit just so that you're comfortable with the amount. Worst case, we do need the funds. You do have it and you are prepared. In some cases, we can get you some seller credits and certain situations like that. So definitely in the beginning, when we have the initial consultation with the buyer, we definitely like to set that ahead of time so that it's not something that comes up later as an issue.
So is a good rule of thumb, prior to speaking to a lender, if I have a buyer come and ask me how much can they expect in closing costs, I usually will tell a buyer anywhere from 3 to 6% of the purchase price, but definitely speak to the lender just to verify that information. Is that something that is accurate, that agents can do?
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with the 3 to 6% rule. Is definitely something good to have. And again, there's so many things that go into the closing bill. There's prepaids, there's insurance, there's escrows, there's the attorney fees and title fees. So we get a better idea of that later in the process, closer to clearing the conditions for closing. So that a lot of it does come up to third-party fees that are out of our control as well.
And how did the client come up with the money? Were they able to come up with the money?
So the good thing about this one was the client actually did have the funds. It's just that when we did tell them that the funds came in higher, they were a little taken back on the process, and it almost doesn't help us on the lending side because they're now thinking that we're either heading on excessive fees, which is not the case when it comes to all these third-party fees, 6 months prepaid taxes and other things like that. So we got them comfortable with us again. They took a deep breath once we reassured them of everything, and it all worked out. So it was good.
That's great. So great ending to a story. What piece of advice would you give, either so that this situation doesn't happen again, or just a piece of advice that you would want to give maybe to a new lender or a realtor that you think might be helpful?
I would definitely say having the agents on the same page of what to expect from the client on the lending side, as well as the real estate transaction as a whole. Having everybody well informed throughout the transaction, whether it's the lender, the agent, the attorneys, of what to expect funds-wise. As long as we can all be on the same page, it makes for a smoother transaction overall.
Awesome, I love that. So if anybody has any questions in regards to getting a mortgage, or maybe even becoming a lender, if you want to go ahead and drop your socials so our listeners can reach out.
For sure. So you can catch me on Instagram. My @ is Carrino, Carrino, with 2 extra O's at the end. If you guys have any questions about anything, or if you're a new buyer in the market looking to get some information, feel free to reach out. Maybe we can plug my information below in the comments.
His information will be right there. So Nick, thank you so much for sharing. Guys, thank you so much for listening. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one.